The Clone Wars raged across the galaxy. Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, famed for his unmatched combat skill and unorthodox methods, had become a living legenda beacon of hope for the Republic and a crucial threat to the Separatists. But during the siege of Raxus Prime, everything changed. Anakin led a daring mission deep behind enemy lines to disable a Separatist droid foundry. Despite the Council's warnings, he insisted on going alone with Captain Rex and a small clone strike team. The mission succeeded briefly, but as they evacuated, a trap was sprung. A massive explosion rocked the factory's core, and, in a final act of heroism, Anakin used the Force to shield his squad, taking the full brunt of the blast. Only Captain Rex survived. Skywalker's body was never recovered. The sky above Raxus Prime was a sickly green, thick with smoke and dust from months of unrelenting war. Blaster fire lit up the ruins of the Separatist stronghold as clone troopers pushed deeper into enemy lines. Among them, moving like a storm, was Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker. His blue lightsaber carved through waves of battle droids with deadly precision, and his voice barked commands with confidence. "Captain Rex, flank left. We disable that factory core. We win this war, at least on this front." "Copy that, General," Rex replied, blaster raised. The mission was clear. Destroy the massive droid foundry churning out thousands of battle droids a day. Intelligence said the core was shielded. Anakin didn't care. He had a plan, as always bold, reckless, and just crazy enough to work. Inside the facility, the smell of melting metal and ionized air filled their lungs. Explosions echoed down every corridor. The team advanced quickly, reaching the central power core. Sparks danced across the chamber as Anakin moved forward, eyes narrowed. "This is it," he muttered. "Set the charges. We'll blow this thing and cripple their whole operation." "Sir," Rex warned, "those readings, if we hit the core directly, it could take out half the mountain. We won't outrun it." "I'm not asking you to," Anakin said, turning to his men. "You all fall back. That's an order." Rex hesitated. "Sir, no." "Go, Rex. The Republic still needs you." Anakin turned, faced the glowing core, and reached out with the Force. The detonators activated. The others ran. The explosion was blinding. A wall of fire and energy surged outward. Anakin, standing at the center, raised both arms. The Force rippled from him like a tidal wave, shielding his team from the blast. And then, silence. When the dust settled, the clones were alive, stunned, bruised, but breathing. The factory was gone. So was Anakin. No trace, no body. Only scorched earth, twisted steel, and the quiet understanding that the Chosen One was gone. Captain Rex sank to his knees, helmet in his hands, whispering one word, "General." The moment Obi-Wan Kenobi learned of Anakin Skywalker's death, time seemed to stop. The Jedi Council chamber was silent, but the grief was thick in the air. Masters sat still, heads bowed, unable to speak. Yoda's eyes were closed, lost in the tremble of the Force. Mace Windu stared forward, expression locked in grim contemplation. But Obi-Wan stood frozen. His breath caught in his throat. His legs felt like stone. He didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't ask if they were sure. He simply turned and walked out. In the weeks that followed, Obi-Wan returned to the front lines. The Clone Wars, relentless and cruel, left no time for mourning. But something inside him had changed. The warmth in his voice faded. The gentle humor that once softened even the darkest moments was gone. He stopped calling the clones by name. He stopped arguing with the Council. He followed orders, and he won battles, many of them. But his methods grew harsh. When General Kenobi walked into a command tent, even hardened officers stood straighter. His gaze was sharp, focused, carved from loss and fire. Captain Cody noticed it first. "He's not sleeping," Cody whispered to Rex one night. "Not since Skywalker." On the battlefield, Obi-Wan took greater risks, pushed harder, faster. Dooku's assassins once ambushed his forces on Jabiim. Instead of retreating, Obi-Wan stormed the enemy line himself, lightsaber blazing, cutting through droids and mercenaries with surgical fury. The battle was won, but the cost was high. Too high, some said. At night, Obi-Wan sat alone, meditating in silence, but the Force no longer gave him peace. And he never spoke Anakin's name. Not once. But the memory was always there in every Padawan he trained, in every clone he saved, and every shadowed corridor where he walked alone. He became a Jedi the galaxy respected, but never again the one it loved. The moment the news reached Coruscant, Padmé Amidala collapsed in silence. Anakin Skywalker was gone. There was no funeral, no body to bury, just ashes and rumors from the front line of stories that the hero with no fear had died shielding his men in a final blaze of light. She stood at the window of her apartment for hours, staring out over the city, her hands resting protectively over her growing belly. He had never even seen them his children. Padmé withdrew from public life. Officially, she was on leave for health concerns. In truth, she couldn't bear the Senate halls anymore, not without Anakin's shadow behind her. Every corridor whispered his name. Every speech felt hollow. Bail Organa was the only one who knew the full truth. One evening, she met him in a quiet hangar under the cover of night. "I need to leave, Bail," she said softly, her voice cracking. "I can't raise them here. Not where they'll always be, his legacy, his ghost." Bail didn't hesitate. "You have a place with us on Alderaan or wherever you need. You won't be alone." But Padmé had already decided. She returned to Naboo, her home, her roots, where the lakes whispered peace and the winds didn't carry the sound of warships. Her labor was quiet, shielded from the galaxy. The midwife droids helped her deliver 2 healthy twins. "Luke," she whispered, holding the boy close. "He had his father's nose." Then the girl eyes wide, strong-willed from the start. "Leia." Tears fell freely now. "You'll never know him," Padmé said, her voice trembling. "But he loved you. I know he did, even if he never met you." She walked out to the veranda later that night, the baby sleeping soundly beside her. The stars above Naboo sparkled with quiet indifference. She closed her eyes, letting the warm breeze wash over her. For the first time in weeks, her heart slowed. Anakin was gone, but in Luke and Leia, something of him remained, and she would protect it always. In the darkened chambers beneath the Senate rotunda, Chancellor Palpatine sat alone, his eyes scanning the star maps before him. The loss of Anakin Skywalker had been unexpected and inconvenient. The boy had been his greatest investment, a raw storm of power and emotion so close to becoming what Palpatine needed. But now he was gone, swallowed by the fire of war and the will of the Force. Palpatine was not a man to mourn. He was a man who adapted. And so, he began to watch, to listen. In the distant Outer Rim, a young Padawan named Ezra Bridger had begun to draw attention. Found by Master Plo Koon during a mission to Lothal, Ezra had shown an unusual connection to the Force. Not just strength, but emotion, fear, anger, hope, pain, all swirling beneath the surface of a quiet, curious boy. "Ezra," Palpatine whispered to himself one evening, so full of questions, so eager to prove himself. He summoned reports, transcripts, temple evaluations. He watched holovids of the boy in training, his impulsiveness, his natural ability, his fierce protectiveness of those around him. And then, the vision. Palpatine closed his eyes, reaching through the dark side like fingers through a shadow. He saw Ezra, older cloaked in black, holding a red blade, standing at his side. The image faded. He smiled. Weeks later, Palpatine arranged for Ezra's transfer to Coruscant, under the pretense of advanced Jedi instruction. Master Plo Koon protested, but the Council, blinded by war, agreed. They needed more Jedi closer to the front, more oversight, more control. Ezra stood quietly before the Chancellor's desk the day he arrived. Just 13, curious, cautious. "You are quite special, young Bridger," Palpatine said smoothly, his voice low and comforting. "You will do great things if you are brave enough to walk your own path." Ezra looked up, confused, but intrigued. He bowed respectfully. "Yes, Chancellor." Palpatine watched him leave, the boy's silhouette framed in the golden light of the Senate Tower. He didn't need a Skywalker. He would make something new. When the order was issued, a cold shock rippled through the ranks of the Republic's clone troopers. In a moment that had once been meticulously orchestrated by Darth Sidious, the signal to execute Order 66 reverberated across battlefronts. Yet, in this altered timeline, the absence of Anakin Skywalker sent tremors of uncertainty even among the clones. As Captain Rex and his team received the command, the way in which the Jedi had once been the uncontested leaders of the battle now shifted into a chaotic struggle for survival. Without Anakin's inspiring presence and the decisive actions he was known for, several Jedi sensed that something was off. Obi-Wan Kenobi, positioned on a distant outpost with a small contingent of his most trusted allies, felt a prickle in his mind, a warning that urged him to move quickly. He rallied his surviving comrades with a firm yet gentle tone, saying, "Stay together, remain vigilant. We must find safety before they catch us." Across the war-torn worlds, Jedi like Ahsoka Tano heard the distant echoes of their clones' betrayal. Many had already started to break away from their posts, abandoning their assignments to vanish into the shadows of besieged cities and dense, hidden forests. In one forgotten sanctuary on the edge of Coruscant, Jedi Master Plo Koon whispered to a young Padawan, "This is not how it should be. We must protect each other and fight back, even now." His words, full of sorrow and resolve, resonated deeply, kindling a spark of rebellion. Without the singular, feared presence of Anakin, the clones' execution of Order 66 was not as seamless as it might have been. Some troopers hesitated, their programmed loyalty overridden by a flicker of doubt. This hesitation provided precious minutes for Jedi to escape and regroup. As chaos erupted on multiple battlefields, the story of the night spread. The Jedi were not completely eradicated, they were resilient, finding ways to outlast even the most draconian orders. In that night of betrayal and broken trust, the galaxy witnessed an unexpected truth. Even in the darkest hour, hope could take root, nurtured by the survival of those who fought not with blind obedience, but with courage and heart. Far from the crumbling halls of the Jedi Temple, hidden deep within the ruins of an old Republic outpost on the moon of Orandia, Ahsoka Tano stood in silence. The world was quiet now, but her heart was not. She lit the dim blue hollow emitter on the table. A flickering image of Quinlan Vos appeared, his voice rough from travel. "We lost another one today. Master Akoba didn't make it out of Salukami." Ahsoka closed her eyes. "How many more will fall before we fight back?" she whispered. Not long ago, she had been Anakin's Padawan bold, hopeful, always charging forward. Now she was something else. Not Jedi, not Sith, just a survivor. But even in the ashes of betrayal, Ahsoka felt something stirring, a calling. The galaxy needed light again. She reached out. One by one, they came. Quinlan Vos reckless but wise answered her call, bringing with him knowledge of old rebel roots and untraceable codes. Cal Kestis still young, still haunted by the horrors of Braccajoined with his droid companion BD-1, carrying with him lost Jedi archives scavenged from forgotten temples. Luminara's last student, a quiet Miri Allen named Talia Veer, brought healing skills and a fire burning beneath her calm exterior. They didn't wear robes. They didn't wield lightsabers openly. But they believed. "We're not Jedi," Ahsoka told them, standing at the edge of a ruined hangar, stars blazing overhead. "Not anymore, but we remember what they stood for." Cal stepped forward, hesitant. "And if they come for us?" "They already are," Ahsoka said, eyes sharp. "So we stop running." And so it began. From the swamps of Felucia to the forgotten towers of Malachor, they rescued the hunted. They disrupted Imperial transports. They smuggled Force-sensitive children to safe worlds. Word spread across systems. The White Shadow, Asterisk. The Wandering Jedi. Asterisk. The Hidden Flame. Asterisk. They were myths, ghosts. But to those in the darkest corners of the galaxy, slaves, refugees, broken clones, they were hope reborn. And somewhere, deep in the shadow of the Empire, Darth Sidious began to worry. Because without Anakin Skywalker to control the tide, the spark had become a fire. The Jedi Temple stood silent. Its once bustling halls were now ghostly echoes of what had been. Order 66 had been issued. Clone battalions turned on their Jedi generals, and chaos swallowed the Republic. But without Anakin Skywalker, without Darth Vader, the plan faltered. On planets like Felucia, Master Aayla Secura had a split second longer to sense the betrayal. On Kashyyyk, Yoda felt the tremor in the Force and escaped death, his saber flashing through the jungle fog. And on the dusty fields of Saleucami, Master Stasali veered just before the explosion, the Force guiding her to safety. The absence of Vader's brutal efficiency gave the Jedi something they weren't meant to have: time. Time to hide. Time to resist. Time to survive. Obi-Wan Kenobi barely escaped Utapau. Burned, broken, and grieving Anakin's loss more than ever, he vanished into the Outer Rim with a silent vow to return. He wasn't alone. Ahsoka Tano, once Anakin's apprentice, had felt her former master's death like a knife in her chest. She didn't cry. She didn't speak of it. Instead, she moved gathering survivors, healing the wounded, and forming whispers into a plan. Jedi, scattered across the stars, began answering her calls. "You're not alone," she told Quinlan Vos, hidden among smugglers near hut space. "We're not warriors anymore," Vos muttered, eyes heavy with guilt. "We never were," Ahsoka replied. "We're guardians, and the people still need guardians." In the ruins of a burned temple on Lothal, Cal Kestis lit his saber for the first time in years. The blue glow shimmered against stone walls as he swore to protect the next generation. They didn't call themselves Jedi anymore, not officially. Not in a galaxy where that name carried a death sentence. But they remembered who they were. And the Empire? It hunted them. But without Anakin's shadow leading its strike, its grip was slow, unfocused. The Jedi purge dragged on like a war of shadows. It was no longer a swift execution. It was a fight. And, scattered though they were, the Jedi began to push back one flicker of hope, one blade of light, one heartbeat at a time. After Anakin Skywalker's death, the dark corridors of the Sith throne room fell silent. Palpatine Darth Sidious sat motionless for hours, his hood casting a long shadow over his disfigured face. His grand plan had depended on Anakin, the chosen one, the perfect vessel for his power. The loss shook him more deeply than he dared admit. But the Sith adapted. They always did. Palpatine turned to Kamino. He summoned the cloners, cold and clinical, and demanded something unnatural: Force-sensitive soldiers, bred in secrecy, engineered for obedience, and molded in darkness. The project was called Blackwing Protocol, and at its heart was a broken concept. If he could not seduce Skywalker, he would manufacture another. The early clones were unstable. Too much Force sensitivity, and they became erratic. Too little, and they were useless. Then came Subject 13. The Kaminoans gave him a name whispered in dread: Vader. Vader was not a man, not yet. He was a weapon being shaped. Fast, brutal, and filled with a fury that seemed to come from nowhere. Sidious watched him in training. The way Vader moved, precise, violent, almost instinctual, reminded him of someone. But the voice was hollow, mechanical, even as a child. One night, Vader sat alone in a darkened chamber. A scar ran across his eye, a wound earned in combat drills. Clones did not dream, but he did. He told one of the guards, quietly, "I see fire in my sleep, a blue light, and a voice I can't place." The Kaminoans brushed it off as genetic echo, but Sidious felt something more, not a connection to the Force, but to the past. Vader was a shadow of what Anakin might have become, a cold reflection, a forged monster. But he was effective. And so, the Emperor unleashed him. First on the Outer Rim, then against rogue Jedi cells. The galaxy whispered of a new enforcer. Not Sith, not Jedi, but something worse. Clones called him the Black Saber. Others said he hunted at night, without mercy, without soul. Palpatine had lost his chosen one. Now he had created his replacement. But deep down, even he knew. The shadow of Anakin Skywalker still haunted the dark. Luke Skywalker grew up under the warm sun of Naboo, surrounded by lakes, meadows, and the quiet strength of his mother, Padmé Amidala. Though she never spoke Anakin's name aloud, she told Luke bedtime stories of a brave Jedi who once fought to protect the galaxy, a man of courage and light. Luke didn't know this was his father, not at first. He only knew that he felt something stir in his chest when he heard those stories, like a flame catching in dry grass. Padme kept his upbringing quiet, sheltered, but Luke was restless. He would race his speeder through the tall grass near Theed, feel the wind in his face, and sometimes he'd move things without touching them. A tool would roll toward him. A door would open before his hand reached it. Padme watched, heart heavy with fear and pride. Far across the stars, Leia Organa sat in a high tower on Alderaan, training in diplomacy and public speaking. Bail and Breha Organa raised her as their daughter, guiding her through the complex politics of the Senate. Leia was quick, brilliant, even. She read faster than her tutors, debated fiercely, and had a sense of justice that burned inside her like wildfire. Late at night, Bail would whisper to Breha, "She's more like Padme than she'll ever know." Leia sometimes dreamed of faraway battles, of glowing swords and voices calling her name. She'd wake with her heart pounding and the feeling that something or someone was missing. A voice, a face she couldn't place. Though oceans of space lay between them, Luke and Leia shared moments neither could explain. When Luke stared at Naboo's stars, Leia would pause mid-speech, sensing something shift. When Leia cried in silence, Luke would wake with a tightness in his chest, not knowing why. They didn't know they were twins. Not yet. But the Force was already pulling threads, connecting their lives, whispering truths behind locked memories. In a galaxy trembling beneath the Empire's boot, the children of Anakin Skywalker were growing stronger. Different worlds, different paths, but the same spark. The spark that would one day ignite a fire the Empire couldn't extinguish. In the cold depths of Kamino's secretive lower labs, a project long buried in Sith prophecy stirred to life. Without Anakin Skywalker to become Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine turned to science, desperation, and Sith alchemy to forge a new enforcerone he could control from creation. The result was Vader, not a man, but a being born in a vat of DarkSide energy and enhanced cloning technology. Tall, pale, and draped in black armor that shimmered with eerie crimson veins, Vader had no memories, no past, no childhood. He was crafted to be obedient, a weapon, not a soul. But something went wrong. The genetic material used collected from fallen Jedi and unknown sources combined in unpredictable ways. Vader began having dreams, vague flashes of twin suns, a woman's voice, screams, sand. Kaminoan scientists recorded it as a glitch. Palpatine sensed something else. The Force was weaving threads he hadn't planned. "Why do I feel pain?" Vader once asked, his voice low, confused. "You were born to feel anger, not pain," the Emperor growled. "Use it, channel it, do not ask why." But Vader kept asking. On his first mission, he cut down a Jedi cell hiding on Corellia. Efficient, unmerciful. But when he found a youngling cowering behind a crate, something in him paused. His blade hummed, but did not strike. The child looked up, trembling. "Are you a monster?" Vader stepped back, unsure. For a moment, it was as if he saw his reflection not in glass, but in the child's wide, frightened eyes. Later, alone in his chamber, he stared into a mirror. His face angular, stern, marked by Sith ritual, seemed unfamiliar, even to himself. "Who was I?" he whispered. The Empire called him Vader. But the whispers across the Outer Rim told a different tale. They said a shadow stalked Jedi, a man who killed with sadness in his eyes. Some said he was a ghost of a Jedi long gone. Others believed he was the echo of Anakin Skywalker reborn, but twisted. And deep inside, Vader began to wonder if he truly was just a clone, or if the Force had given him a soul